Yeah.
It's gnarly.
Yeah, this is, I'm on Ferris Road where the main dozer line comes off, and you want your engines to come in here and the structure protection on this one out.
See all that flying in the air?
Dude, we'll
Right now.
they took it around the left side of this. See, I seen it coming around there.
Yeah,
There's a spot.
Just let me know. Right now, off the base trip. Hey, Chris, you up? Subdivision is up there.
Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, we got Nestor in this truck over here.
Okay, yeah, we got everybody off.
I said Nestor's not here.
Hey, dude, you got everybody? Got in my resources for. Yeah, Steve, we're all here. Okay.
Unreal, man.
That was cool, dude. Had to GoPro on.
Hell, huh?
Drought and north of Reno, right along the California-Nevada border, there's the Beckworth Complex fire. Started with the sugar fire and the Dota fire from some dry lightning strikes last week, and it's continued to grow into a single fire. And now the fire is up over 60,000 acres from last I heard, and it's still spreading. They've only got 8% containment on it. And for a fire that size this early in the year is pretty remarkable. No telling how much bigger it's going to grow because we have these hot, dry conditions that are just staying in place. We were standing in Doyle, California. They evacuated the city. A thunderstorm had blew up over kind of over the Reno, Carson area. It wasn't a very significant storm. It went up, and as soon as it went up, it went right back down, and it blew out an outflow boundary. And that outflow boundary shifted the winds and increased the winds on the fire and really blew it up. And that's when you're seeing those patches of trees just really ignite these huge 300-foot tall flames. But as the fire concerns, just be very aware. Do not start any type of sparks that can hit any type of vegetation. I watched one spark come out that fire day before yesterday, hit a patch of dry grass, and within 10 seconds the fire was the size of a football field. So it's just these little spot fires will blow up so fast. So if you see smoke, be very aware, report it, and be very careful.
Evacuations are in place for some areas of Descanso and the Viejas Reservation after the road fire broke out and spread rapidly this afternoon, burning 100 acres. Good evening, I'm Adam Merkusen in for Vanessa. Tonight, firefighters have stopped the forward spread. The fire is now 17% contained. As ABC 10 News reporter Mimi Alcala explains, it all started as a semi-truck fire.
We're told a semi-truck caught on fire just down the road here, and that fire quickly spread up this hillside. We have seen multiple airdrops throughout the afternoon here. We're right off of the I-8 near Habitable Valley Road, and crews are making good progress.
We're still just getting started in our fire season.
What started as a semi-truck on fire quickly spread to dry brush on the I-8 west of Habitable Valley Road Saturday afternoon. Flames climbing up the hillsides rapidly.
The fire quickly jumped this road and went to the top of the ridge. Pretty rapid rates of spread. Luckily we got aircraft on it quick.
With the steep terrain, excessive heat, and dry brush, airdrops from up above helped firefighters get a handle on the so-called road fire as the ground crews hiked up the hill to try to form a controlled line. As a precaution, warnings and mandatory evacuations were put in place for parts of Descanso and the 𝐉𝐄𝐻 reservation. A temporary evacuation point was set up at the 𝐉𝐄𝐻 casino. Battalion Chief Jamie Rickard with the U.S. Forest Service says while homes weren't directly in the line of the fire, they had to act quickly.
There's a little ways between the homes and where the fire's edges, so there's some time. We weren't sure what the fire was going to do, and it was running quick up to the ridgetop.
Mimi Alcala, ABC 10 News.
The U.S. Forest Service tells us about 215 people had to leave their homes during the evacuation. At this point, the evacuations are still.
Our crew is at the scene of another blaze right here in our own backyard. Welcome to KOIN 6 News at 11 o'clock. I'm Wayne Haverly and our own Jennifer Dowling. She is at the scene of a 2-alarm brush fire. It was out on McGuire Island in the Columbia River just off Marine Drive. And Jennifer, certainly some tense moments a little earlier out there.
It was, because it took a while to get to that fire. We're standing near the dock here where they were ferrying fire crews from this point over to the island because it's not accessible by land. You have to go by boat. So those fire crews were busy going to and fro all evening. They were able to knock it down to around 10 acres, but that fire still isn't out. And we talked to a spokesperson for the fire. That's Rob Garrison from Portland Fire and Rescue. And he tells us that Gresham Fire got the call at around 7:14 in the evening. And they, of course, went as quickly as they could to get to that fire. But since there's no access and they had to go by boat, it took a while to get there. So by the time they reached the fire, it was going pretty good. And they first got a call it was a brush fire. They still don't know the cause at this time. They called out for additional units from Portland Fire and Rescue to help and the Port of Portland.
They have the fire knocked down tonight. They don't have it completely out. It's a very large area. It's about 10 acres, most the length of the island. So they have the fire, what they think is going to be enough knocked down tonight. We're actually calling in the state. The state's going to try and bring in some hand crews tomorrow to try and follow up on this fire. They have more resources to put out a large wildland fire like this than we do.
Garrison says it's quite an undertaking to tackle a fire on the island. He says they have to run thousands of feet of hose line off of a fireboat to get water on that fire. And there aren't any structures or houses on the island itself, but he says there's always a lot of people camping, fishing, or recreating, so they can't just let that fire go. They have to get resources out there and make a plan. There were around 30 to 40 firefighters who were called out, stretching lines to battle that fire with 4 boats. He says they probably had around 10 crews in different areas working on several different fronts. So again, state hand crews are being called in tomorrow morning in order to further tackle this fire, but looks like they got some line around it, and it's currently kind of lying down at around 10 acres this evening.
15 people are without a home in this high heat tonight after an early morning fire that destroyed an apartment complex in Davis. Now, this happened at the Sun Tree Apartments here on F Street and Covell Boulevard. Now, the fire started at 3:45 this morning. Now, this was all hands on deck with multiple agencies working this fire with the Davis Fire Department to get this under control.
We have 4 apartments with pretty serious fire damage right now. The good news is no occupants injured.
That is the good news. 2 City of Davis firefighters, though, were treated at the hospital for minor injuries and released. The cause of how this fire started still under
I'm here at the Incident Command Post based here at 𝐶HLQUIN High School. You can see behind me the tents. Those belong to firefighters who are fighting the bootleg fire. And this fire has grown so fast in the heat and dry conditions. In just about 24 hours, it more than doubled in size.
Daytime operations are becoming challenging and quite honestly a little dangerous at some times when the fire is moving really fast and rapidly and hot.
So Herr Zutendijk with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office says their strategy is changing, with firefighters more active in the evening when the fire isn't as intense.
So during the day, fire is very active. Our firefighters are still going to have a presence, but they're not going to be as actively engaged.
On Thursday, Zutendijk, whose team is focused on protecting structures, had said 100 homes and structures were threatened. But by Friday, that number went up to 3,000 threatened in level 2 and 3 evacuation zones.
The 3,000 is what we received from the Klamath County Emergency Management. So we're kind of double checking.
More crews on the ground marking home locations and helping people make their homes more fire safe. Over at the evacuation center set up at the Klamath County Fairgrounds, Kim Berge is hoping for the best.
We were just told that it was time to get out and get our babies to safety, and thought that's the best way to do it.
So she and her fiance, their 5 dogs and 4 cats, came here to the evacuation center.
Just praying for our firefighters and make sure that I'm praying they get it all taken care of and nobody loses their house.
And firefighters here are hoping for the same. But these dry conditions are very challenging. In fact, a fire behavior specialist says if an ember were to land on grass like this, there is a 100% likelihood that a fire will start. Here in Chilliquin, Christine Pitawanich.
Tens of thousands of acres blackened in just a few days. The massive bootleg fire is now well over 100,000 acres in size, and crews from across Oregon are now chipping in and scrambling to help. Welcome to KOIN 6 News. I'm Wayne Haverly. The 2 wildfires burning in Oregon right now, the big ones anyway, doubled in size Saturday, bringing widespread smoke across the southern half of the state and kicking firefighting efforts into high gear. The bootleg fire is now burning more than 143,000 acres, and firefighting crews from Multnomah County, they left yesterday to assist. KOIN 6's Jennifer Dowling, she is live now with the details on what has quickly become a massive firefight. Jennifer?
It has, and the conditions have been really tough on those folks trying to get a handle on that fire. It's because of the wind and hot, dry conditions. And yes, some people went down yesterday in order to battle that fire. Firefighters actually needed to pull back in some areas on Saturday because the fire conditions were so extreme and so dangerous. Now, this weekend, state officials requested help from the Multnomah County Task Force to battle the bootleg fire in Klamath County. They left for the fire yesterday evening. The task force is made up of units from Portland, Gresham, and the Corbett Fire Departments. This is what Operations Section Chief Trainee Bruce Meyer said about the firefight on Saturday.
The focus is to hold the fire where it's come down to the 4437 road, and also to improve any kind of prep work along that road. That would include a little bit of dozer work up here in the very northern part of that division.
The task force is comprised of an engine and water tender from Corbett, 2 brush units from Portland, and a brush unit. Portland Fire Chief Sarah Boone says all fire departments have a dual responsibility during wildfire season. The primary mission is to provide local emergency response coverage, as well as an obligation under the state's emergency mobilization plan to help during wildfire conflagration. Clackamas Fire says a task force from Clackamas County has also been deployed to the bootleg fire. Firefighters with Clackamas Fire, Canby Fire, Lake Oswego Fire, and the Sandy Fire District are all joining in the fight. And Clackamas Fire posted that one of its crews was also deployed to help in the Jack Fire, assisting with structure protection. Reporting live in Portland, Jennifer Dowling, KOIN 6
New
News.
Hampshire say a Massachusetts couple is lucky they didn't get hurt when several large trees fell on their car. Police say the 2 were driving last night when the trees came crashing down on the hood of their convertible. The car was seriously damaged, and those trees also took down power lines, knocking out
breaking
power.
news in the East County. We're tracking a brush fire that is forcing some evacuations tonight. The Marin fire broke out about 6:30. This is in a rural area of DULZURA. According to CAL FIRE, the fire is now grown to 70 acres.
Evacuation orders are in effect for residents of Bee Canyon Road, with an evacuation warning for Little Tecate Road. A temporary evacuation area is now set up at Steel Canyon.
Exactly. We know that because materials contract in the cold and expand in the heat. Right now, the concrete on that interstate surface is expanding, but there are other forces at work too.
That's a terrible thing to have happen on an interstate. And so we want to get in there, shut down the affected lanes right away.
This was the scene on I-215 in Taylorsville Tuesday, when the concrete expanded and had nowhere to go but up.
There's no sign of when and where it's going to happen.
Statewide pavement engineer Jason Simmons tells me our interstate surfaces are made of concrete panels connected by contraction joints.
We know it's going to crack, so we cut those so the cracks form right there.
The concrete contracts and expands, but never back to its original volume. Over time, rocks and grit get in the joints, which keeps the concrete from moving back and forth. When the concrete panels cannot move and the heat expands the concrete, it buckles.
It's these rocks that build up inside the joint that typically cause that failure.
But it's not just the 100-degree heat that triggers the buckling.
On that day, we had sustained high temperatures and sustained high low temperatures, and so that material was never able to contract back down and relieve the pressure.
Not a big problem from a paving standpoint, he says, but a serious problem for traffic. It happens anywhere from 12 to 24 times a year.
It's kind of an unwritten rule for a lot of our maintenance folks that they won't take time off around the last week of June, first week of July, because we know that we're going to see these type of issues.
So if you see buckling or crumbling pavement while you're out driving, call 911 because that is an emergency and UDOT wants to get on top of it right away. Guys?
All right, Jet Bull live first this evening.
High temperatures and low water levels are leading to some potentially dangerous conditions in Utah's waters.
Yeah, we could see more algae blooms in our reservoirs. News specialist Mike Anderson spoke with a woman who learned the hard way the blooms can be deadly for pets. Mike.
Yeah, Dana Dini, you know, as you can imagine, a lot of people love coming out here. It's a big reason for living in Manta Way. But right now there is a new warning for an algal bloom out here, and Kelly Esparza is asking people to pay attention to that because almost a year ago, she didn't. Many of us want a chance to cool off, but there's good reason to check the signs first.
We have swam here for years, and our other dog had swam here for years.
Kelly Esparza says she had seen the warnings before, but didn't think much of them. Algal blooms are a fairly regular occurrence at Manta Way Reservoir.
And I thought if I stayed in the parts of the water where you couldn't see the algae, I thought she would be fine.
It worked for her older dog, but then Esparza got Daisy.
And she loved the water too.
And almost a year ago, at just 5 months old, Esparza says Daisy got sick and died. She ended up getting an autopsy, which she says found liver failure that her veterinarian says was likely caused by one of two things.
And when he said blue-green algae, my heart just sunk because we had taken her to this reservoir here time and time again. And even though the signs were there, even though I'd heard that there's algae, I thought we had another dog that swam here with no problem.
Her warning today is simple.
I don't want other people to make the mistake that I made.
With high temperatures and lower water levels, the Utah Division of Water Quality is keeping a close eye on our major reservoirs, doing extra checks.
We'll often see blooms starting around May, but what we are seeing is that some reservoirs, which typically don't have blooms until maybe September, October, already have cyanobacteria in larger abundance.
They're asking all of us to be careful too. Don't swim or water ski in a bloom, and definitely keep your pets out of the water.
Our dogs are family. Yeah. Yep.
And the Division of Water Quality says if you still insist on going on the water, make sure you don't get it in your mouth, and definitely after you get out, wash your hands thoroughly. We'll post a link to their current list of algal blooms on our website, KSLTV.
Marine ecologist Alyssa Gaiman discovered beds of dead mussels while on a walk in Vancouver. She joins me now, a marine ecologist with the 𝐃𝐻 Institute, an adjunct professor at the University of British Columbia. Also with me, Emily Carrington, a professor of marine biology at the University of Washington. I'm so excited to talk to the two of you because I think this is incredibly important. Alyssa, first, you told the Washington Post that this is the first time you've ever seen anything with this magnitude of mortality. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah, it actually started with a smell. I went down to the beach to cool off because it was incredibly hot. And it just smelled like cooking shellfish, sort of rotten, putrid cooking shellfish smell. And that immediately triggered alarms for me. And I went and looked closer, and you can see in these images, mussels during low tide should be closed. They should be completely closed, and they are holding water in to sort of withstand the high temperatures. And these had just all of them that I was looking at had died. And you're seeing at the top of these rocks, all the mussels that were there died because
were you just completely shocked? Because looking at these pictures, I can't even believe what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I had been worried about the high temperatures because of the coincidence with the low tides, but I hadn't expected anything like this. These animals do experience high temperatures regularly. They are adapted to live in these sorts of conditions. but this was hotter than they could handle. They were just literally cooking on the rocks. Some of them up to 120 degrees we measured.
So, Emily, what does this mean? I mean, when you see pictures like that, when you understand what's happening, what's the real world impact?
Right. So mussels are known as a foundation species, and they provide a lot of ecosystem services to the coastal communities. One of the things they do is provide habitat for a lot of other organisms, so we expect a lot of mortality associated with the loss of these mussels. They're also really important food for things that humans care about, things like crabs and other shellfish. And then finally, they filter a lot of water. So it's estimated that just one mussel can filter about 6 gallons of water per day. So when we think about 1 billion mussels, that's 1 billion gallons of water that aren't being filtered and cleared for things like eelgrass. So we really rely on those clear waters in these coastal communities.
Alyssa, if people are looking at this, if they're shocked by it as you were, fortunately, those of us who are just looking at the pictures can't smell what you smelled. What are the things that people can do and should be doing to address what this tells us is wrong?
We begin tonight with the oppressive heat wave in the West, intensifying the already critical drought, record-breaking temperatures well into the triple digits. This on the heels of already deadly heat that killed nearly 200 people in the Pacific Northwest in recent weeks. Volunteers you see there in Sacramento handing out water and food. The extreme heat fueling dozens of large fires as well. The Beckworth Complex fire on the California-Nevada border doubling in size in the last 24 hours. Reservoirs and lakes at dangerously low levels, 93% of the West experiencing drought conditions. The heat stretching from California to Montana, 32 million people now under heat alerts, temperatures peaking today and tomorrow. Residents in several states being asked to conserve power and water. Rob Marciano standing by with the forecast, but first, ABC's Will Carr leads us off from Palm Desert, California.
Tonight, life-threatening triple-digit temperatures are gripping much of the West. 32 million residents from California to Montana under excessive heat alerts, record-shattering as the region faces its third wave of dangerous heat in just a matter of weeks.
It's hot. It's like you're on fire.
Sacramento hitting 111 degrees, Grand Junction, Colorado 107, Palm Springs 118 degrees this weekend, Death Valley reaching 130, just 4 degrees shy of the hottest temperature ever reached in the world.
Here in Rancho Mirage, this playground's empty, and for good reason. Check out just how hot it is out here. 164 degrees, hot enough to give a child third-degree burns.
These record temperatures come on the heels of that deadly heat wave in the Pacific Northwest that killed nearly 200 people. With this heat comes a drought emergency. In California, the entire state is facing a drought. 85% is now in extreme drought. This time last year, the extreme drought was just 2%. In a dramatic call to action, the governor this week calling on residents in industries to voluntarily cut their water usage by 15%. On top of the relentless drought and heat, the West is now battling wildfire season.
How dangerous are these conditions?
They're dangerous. We're exposed to the heat often, and these guys are working 24-hour, 36-hour shifts.
The bootleg fire in Oregon threatening power lines used to import energy to California, which prompted officials today to issue a statewide alert asking all residents to conserve power in an attempt to stabilize the power grid. The state of Nevada also asking residents to conserve energy this weekend. Firefighters tonight battling the massive Beckworth Complex fire on the California-Nevada border. That fire doubling in size in just the past 24 hours with more than 55,000 acres burned.
And Will Carr joins us now from Palm Desert, California. Will, this is the third heat wave in a row gripping much of the West. How rare is it to see such high temperatures this early and this often in the season?
Whit, it is rare and it is hot here. This is the third heat wave we've had in just a short amount of time.
At this point, just talking about, that's the other major fire in southern Oregon right now. It has also spread very rapidly over the weekend, also doubling in size. It's now nearly 11,000 acres in size. Crews have it only 10% contained. All Forest Service campgrounds in that area are now under level 3 go now evacuation orders, including the Apple Creek, Horseshoe Bend, and Eagle Rock campgrounds. And there are also go now evacuations for Dry Creek and all people on Elahi Road. Highway 138 East is also closed at milepost 55. So very, very serious situation.
Complex fire exploding overnight, destroying more than a dozen homes. It's all happening in Lassen County. New pictures and video show those burned homes and vehicles as well. The fire has burned more than 83,000 acres at this hour, making it the largest wildfire so far this year. Now, the U.S. Forest Service says the fire grew more than 28,000 acres in the past day. Strong winds pushing the flames down into the community of Doyle, burning down 20 homes. Helicopter dropping water, trying to stop the spread. The fire is only 8% contained tonight. By the way, Sacramento City and Sac Metro fire departments both have crews working on this fire. So far, there are no reports of any injuries.
Breaking news now at 5:30. Crews are trying to get a handle on this brush fire you see burning in a remote area of Malibu. That fire near the PCH and Tuna Canyon Road has burned about 5 acres. We want to get to Scott Reif. He's live in Air 7 HD with a look at things from above there, Scott. And more smoke than flames, we hope.
Certainly, and even not a lot of smoke, Randy. Things really look good right here early on. That shot right there gives you an idea, though, how difficult it is for firefighters. This is burning to the east side of Tuna Canyon, north of PCH, up in the Santa Monica Mountains, in some very steep terrain. Now, the helicopters were dispatched earlier this morning. They have been released at this point in time, but it appears the crews on scene will be able to handle. The winds are calm, relatively warm in this area, but there is some moisture. There's a bit of a marine layer just offshore. You can see the crews on Tuna Canyon Road. That has been shut down. There are no homes threatened. There are no injuries we know of at this time. And the cause of this blaze, it's in a kind of a strange spot, but the cause of the fire is still at this point under investigation. John?
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Get more great ABC7 content by clicking the subscribe button for our YouTube channel. And download the ABC7 Los Angeles streaming app on Fire TV, Android TV, Apple TV, and Roku to watch on your TV.
An evacuation alert has recently been issued by the Caribou Regional District in the province's south. The alert is currently in effect for the Flat Lake area north of Kamloops, and authorities say residents should be prepared to evacuate the area. The goal is to give advance notice of evacuation, but changing weather conditions could make that difficult. And there are more than 200 wildfires burning in BC today. The most recent one of note is located outside of Vernon. The Becker Lake wildfire ignited yesterday and can be seen from town. Crews are working to contain those flames, but the cause of the fire is unknown at this time. A dry spring and early summer heat wave are mostly to blame for this busy and early start to the wildfire season. Our Joel Ballard has more.
It started late Friday night, shortly after 10. Flames quickly climbed a hill off a highway near Coldstream and east of the city of Vernon.
The whole hillside's gone.
By 12:30, officials made the call for a tactical evacuation.
My daughter and son-in-law, and we prepared to evacuate. We packed the cars, we discussed a plan where we would go. Friends were contacting me offering refuge.
Dozens of crew members, the local fire department, helicopters, all worked through the early hours. The fire, which grew to 43 hectares, is under control. The BC Wildfire Service says it isn't expected to spread any further. By morning, the evacuation order had been rescinded. Residents could return home, but an evacuation alert remains in place.
There's the water.
But just as residents were sighing a breath of relief, a second fire was sparked. This one only about 3 kilometers outside of Vernon near Becker Lake.
It is classified as out of control at an estimated 1 hectare in size. We have 4 personnel responding with 2 helicopters and air tanker support and assistance from local fire department.
Video from a resident who lives nearby shows how the fire looms over the homes below.
Yeah, we're a little nervous right now. We've already got bags packed and personal belongings that we don't want to lose all ready to go in the vehicles. So it's just across the way from us right now. It's not too far. I'm more concerned about the people that live super close to it. They're only not even half a K away from it.
Officials say thanks to the weather, it's mostly climbing up the mountain.
It's a little bit overwhelming at times, but we've got a very good group of people, both here locally as well as within the region, and the paramount priority is resident safety and protecting the community.
Multiple cops heading up.
Some homes close to the fire have already been evacuated, according to witnesses. But Seibel says there's no official evacuation alert or order at this time. But it could come, depending on the weather and if the fire spreads. Meanwhile, residents watch closely, keeping a go bag ready just in
Saturday
case.
Scorcher, extreme heat across the region, and it's not over yet. The high heat staring down some records for Sacramento tonight. A blistering 113 degrees today in downtown Sacramento, the second hottest day on record there. Thanks for being with us tonight at 10, everyone. I'm Marissa Perlman. We're also streaming tonight on CBSN Sacramento. Jordan Segundo starts us off from the Weather Center tonight. Now, after today, Jordan, so many of us want to know how long this heat wave is going to stick around.
Well, Marissa, we've got a few more days with triple digits in the forecast. But again, today was the second hottest day on record since 1877. Like you mentioned, it was also a new daily record. That daily record was back in 2002 at 112 degrees. But this 113 is just 1 degree shy of becoming or tying that hottest day, which is back in 1925 at 114. So, folks,
tonight,
it was very
a blistering heat wave is scorching the western U.S. Tens of millions are now under heat advisories and warnings. And Canada, studies show the heat may have killed over 1 billion sea creatures. Washington and Oregon have issued new emergency orders to protect farm workers exposed to record temperatures. The heat has killed more than 160 people in those two states. Scientists this week warned that human-caused climate change is accelerating events.
Firefighters are actively working to contain several wildfires in northern Minnesota. They're in Superior National Forest, including the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. WCCO's Pafua Yang explains why the threat is ongoing.
So within Minnesota, there's 4 main fires that we're dealing with.
National Weather Service's meteorologist 𝐃𝐎𝐍 in Duluth says dry air and lightning caused the latest wildfires in northern Minnesota.
I know that we're anywhere from 3 to 6 inches below normal precipitation for the year, which is a lot.
According to the U.S. Forest Service, the 4 fires started early this month. They range in size from 62 acres to 1/10 of an acre, the largest being the Delta Fire.
What the Forest Service will do is contain them and try to reach 100% containment, which doesn't mean it's out, it just means it's completely controlled. And then from there, the Forest Service will allow it to burn out on its own.
The current status of containment isn't known yet. While the U.S. Forest Service and firefighters work on the fires, a number of lakes, campsites, and portages are closed. Do you see the smoke at all from where you're at?
If I were to step outside right now, I could also tell you that there was smoke around.
Levin says smoke is expected to stick around Sunday, with winds expecting to switch directions Monday.
Which is going to bring southerly winds back around, and so that will allow the smoke back up into Canada, where much of our smoke is actually originating from.
While communities wait for the wildfires to subside, Levins reminds people to pay attention to the drought status, as fires can easily start. So are we hoping for rain then?
Yes, yeah, we've been hoping for rain for a while.
Pafua Yang, WCCO 4 News.
If you're camping or planning on camping in the Boundary Waters Canoe area, you can expect to see planes assisting with the fires. And much of the state, including the Twin Cities, will see hazy sunsets and sunrises, but the air quality should not be affected down here.